Hi, I'm Barb Culver, the founder of Resonate Inc. Thanks for joining me today for a few minutes to talk about today's topic. And for those of you who responded to our survey asking about the topics in which you're most interested, we have taken an idea from you to talk about conquering today's top retirement issues. So thanks to those of you who gave us this feedback so that we could prepare this presentation today. Many of you know that today's retirees face very, very different challenges from the retiree of 20 years ago. It's my goal today to identify the top retirement challenges for you and to offer solutions on how to address each one. In addition, there are some new ideas that are circulating that I'm going to comment on today in which I think you need to practice caution before making any decisions. So let's start with the number one retirement issue, which is health care. After food, shelter, and clothes, health care is the biggest expense for which retirees need to plan in retirement. This is a quote from the Investment Advisor, March 2014. National healthcare spending projections, even after healthcare reform, expect that healthcare for retirees will continue to rise at about 6.3% per year, unquote. So on top of this inflationary increase, the other great challenge with healthcare, of course, is its unpredictability. Part of the unpredictability includes not only how much care we will require, but what type of health care we might need. The choices of plans available to you today can be absolutely overwhelming. So my recommendation regarding health care as it pertains to getting coverage for doctors and hospitals is that you work with an independent specialist who does nothing but help advise retirees on both healthcare reform as well as the plans that are still available in the independent sector. We have recommendations for you for people that we trust in this area if you are interested in receiving them. Then, of course, the other huge part of healthcare has to do with the need for either care at home or in a nursing facility. This is another very complex area which has a variety of options regarding how you might choose to address this topic. The options range from choosing to be self-insured entirely to be fully insured against the need for either home health care or care in a nursing facility, or some combination of the two. In a previous video, I've addressed the current changes taking place specific to the area of long-term care insurance. That adds to the complexity. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you regarding the various options you have for funding in this area. Retirement challenge number 2 is longevity. While this continues to be more of an issue for women than men, the need to plan for at least one member of a couple to live to be either 85, 90, or even 100 years old is ever more prevalent. According to the Social Security Actuarial Life Table, which used the mortality rates from 2009, a male who reaches age 60 is expected to live another 21.27 years. So a male who reaches age 60 is expected to live to about age 81 or 82. Conversely, for a woman who reaches age 60, she's expected to live another 24.3 years, or somewhere between ages 84 and 85. Now listen to what happens to these numbers if a male reaches age 75. Then his life expectancy increases by another 10.87 years. So for a man who reaches age 75, his life expectancy is about age 86. And for the woman who reaches age 75, her life expectancy is 12.79 years, which would take her out to about age 88. Now, what adds to the complexity of this is that increased longevity and escalating healthcare costs typically go hand in hand. So I have two solutions to offer to you regarding the risk of longevity. The first is to be very disciplined about the amount of spending that you choose to do in your early retirement years. Now, I understand that oftentimes there are special things you want to be able to do, perhaps around the house or in the way of travel, and that can be a part of your overall plan. However, if you spend too much in those early years, then it's very difficult to make up the funds that may be needed in your later years. So we highly recommend that anyone approaching retirement or already in retirement have a comprehensive financial plan in place. The plan will provide the guidelines and boundaries around what are called safe withdrawal rates from your existing assets, as well as safe spending levels. That way, you can spend with confidence, you can enjoy what you do, and not worry that somehow you're robbing your future to have a nice present. Of course, every individual or couple's plan is unique to his, her, or their specific set of circumstances. This is the area also that I want to suggest you be very cautious about regarding having conversations with people who are not professionals in this area. Sadly, we find there's a lot of misinformation that gets circulated in casual conversations. Again, this is a very complex area of planning, which in our opinion requires experienced professional guidance to reach the conclusions which are appropriate for your specific situation. Retirement risk number 3 is inflation. Once again, this is obviously very closely related to both longevity and healthcare. Since in our plans, we are often planning for retirement to last up to 30 years, say for example somebody retires at age 60 and we're planning for someone in the couple to live to age 90, I thought it might be helpful to understand the average inflation rate for the decade of the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and also for the first 10 years of 2000. So, listen to this. The cumulative inflation rate from 1970 through 1979 was 102.91%. The cumulative inflation rate for 1980 to 1989 was 62.08%. From 1990 to 1999, that rate dropped almost in half to 32.10%. And from 2000 to 2009, the cumulative inflation rate was only 27.93%. So this is a total of 225.02% of inflation from 1970 through 2009, which results in an average inflation rate of about 5.6% per year. And by the way, my source for this information is the 2011 inflation data, inflationdata.com. The reason I think this is particularly important is because we have gotten used to a very low inflation rate since 1990. I believe this can be a trap when planning for retirement. Remember that the average has been about 5.6%, even though the current rate is less than 3%. So, one important way to prepare for this inevitability of increasing inflation is to consider your portfolio investment return on an after-tax, after-inflation basis. So here's an example. Let's say your total portfolio return was 7% in a given year. And let's assume that you're in a 20% blended income tax bracket. That means that after taxes, your 7.7% rate of return actually equals 5.6%. If we then assume an inflation rate of 3%, your after-tax, after-inflation rate of return is actually only 2.6%. So we believe it's very important to keep track of your actual rate of return compared to your gross rate of return. We think that this will make your planning for the future much more realistic. Now, the final retirement risk, unfortunately, is often ignored. This level of retirement risk is called the market sequence rate of returns. Essentially what that means is this is the risk of retiring in the wrong year. So for example, let's assume that your retirement projections are based on the portfolio returning an average of 6% gross, before taxes, before inflation, per year. But let's further assume that in the first 2 years of retirement, your portfolio actually had a negative return. Think back to 2007, 2008, 2009. Obviously, the return that you get on your portfolio in the early years of your retirement will significantly impact the accuracy of long-range projections. Since nobody has the proverbial crystal ball, here are several ideas about actions you can take to control this particular risk. Number one, you can choose to keep anywhere from 1 to 2 years worth of cash needs on hand. That way, if the market is negative in the first year or two of your retirement, you have cash assets upon which to draw and do not need to sell from your portfolio while it's down in value. The second idea here is to have a well-diversified portfolio. This way, the amount of loss you can incur will be limited to the amount of money that you have invested in any particular asset class. It's also important to find asset classes that are considered to be non-correlated. Non-correlated asset classes mean that the asset classes actually move in opposite directions. So for example, if the U.S. stock market goes down dramatically, typically gold goes up. Please note I'm not necessarily recommending that you purchase gold at this time, but I am recommending that you consider using non-correlated assets when constructing your retirement portfolio. Well, as you can see, life just keeps getting more and more complex for all of us, doesn't it? While no one can be expected to, quote, have all the answers, it certainly does help to work with a highly qualified and experienced professional team who can think with you to address each of these retirement risks in a way that's consistent with your goals, your objectives, your risk tolerance, your time frame, and your values. We would be more than happy to sit with you and think about your situation. Thank you again for your time today.